following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the TFangy coming to you with what will hopefully be a successful review, and today we're going to be taking a look at a special Transformers action figure, because it's actually two action figures that are sold in the same box, and it is the Transformers Shattered Glass, this is Shattered Glass, anyways, this is the Transformers Decepticon Slicer with partner Decepticon Exo-Suit. The reason why I was hesitant about saying the word Shattered Glass is because, just like the Deluxe Class Shattered Glass Flame War figure, and to a point Leader Class Ultra Magnus, this Transformers figure here, Decepticon Slicer, he is not actually a Shattered Glass Transformers action figure. For whatever reason, Hasbro and Takara Tomy decided to release him in the Shattered Glass line when he's not a Shattered Glass Transformers figure. It would have been more appropriate if Slicer had been released in the Generation Selects line, and so that's my personal frustration with this, is that to expand the Shattered Glass line of Transformers figures, Hasbro and Takara Tomy have shoehorned a few Transformers action figures that are not Shattered Glass characters into this line, and Slicer is one of them. So yeah, there is Slicer, there's Icer inside of his box. He is a straight-up repaint of the Transformers Earthrise / Kingdom Deluxe Class Wheeljack figure. In the Transformers Generation 1 line, for those of you who don't know who Slicer is, he was a Decepticon Action Master. He did not actually possess a vehicle mode. However, he was one of the Action Masters that came with a transforming vehicle that he would ride in. It transformed from a red Doom Buggy into I believe it was a type of exosuit, a battle suit that he would wear, and that's why his new partner that he comes packaged with is named Exo-Suit. And I'll show off who Exo-Suit when we get to the back of the box. Here on the top, you got the Shattered Glass logo, and then you got some artwork of Slicer. There's a close-up of his face, and there's that outward image of that same artwork. You got the same artwork here on this side of the box where he's jumping into battle. And so yes, Slicer is not a heroic Decepticon from the Shattered Glass universe. He's an evil Decepticon from the G1 universe. Here on here to the back of the box, you got Slicer, and then there is his new partner, Exo-Suit. And so, as I said, Exo-Suit, that's why the reason why he's named Exo-Suit is that he's based on the red Doom Buggy vehicle that the Generation 1 Action Master version of Slicer came with. And so, to try and give Transformers fans and collectors a chance to mimic the Generation 1 red Doom Buggy that Slicer came with, Hasbro and Takara Tomy decided to repaint the Earthrise Fasttrack mold into a brand new character named Exo-Suit based on Generation 1 Slicer's Exo-Suit that transformed from his Doom Buggy vehicle mode. So yeah, admittedly, the Battle Tank vehicle mode that Exo-Suit transforms into, the only thing it's reminiscent of with the four-wheel Doom Buggy that Generation 1 Slicer came with is the red paint job. But I'm happy that you get two Deluxe Class Transformers figures for the price of one in this set. And so there's Slicer in his robot mode, and in his vehicle mode, again, he was an Action Master in the Generation 1 line, so I believe this is the first time that Slicer has been given an actual vehicle, so he transforms into a inspired sports car that's inspired based on the Lancia Stratos, and he transforms back and forth from robot mode to vehicle mode in 18 steps, and with Exo-Suit he transforms from robot mode to vehicle mode in just 10 steps, and because Exo-Suit is a straight-up repaint of, I believe actually he might be a straight-up repaint of Black Rorichi, the second use of the Earthrise Fasttrack mold, but because he's a straight-up repaint of Black Rorichi and Fasttrack, he has the same weaponizer gimmick where you can disassemble him and attach him to form a suit of armor here that Slicer can use, and the way the official product photos here are designed, it's based very loosely. It's a stretch of the imagination, but it's supposed to be based on the transforming red Doom Buggy that Slicer's G1 action figure came with. And another reason why Hasbro and Takara Tomy decided to, and I got this off of the Transformers Wikipedia, another reason why they repainted Fasttrack and the mold into Exo-Suit is for this right here. Just like Fasttrack and Black Rorichi, the Exo-Suit can transform into the Tyrant Spear that's meant to be used by Black Zarak. So for those of you who have the Generation Selects Titan Class as a Legacy Black Zarak figure that was released last year in 2022, and you don't like the Black Rorichi Gold Tyrant Spear here to be used by Black Zarak Exo-Suit can now give you the red version of the Tyrant Spear, even though Black Zarak actually comes with a non-transforming version of the Tyrant Spear already. So that's why in the title of the video, I put a question mark next to the word Shattered Glass because Slicer and Exo-Suit, they are not Shattered Glass characters or figures. They are Generation 1 figures, so it would have been much more appropriate if these guys had been released in the Transformers Generation Selects line or even in the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line. So basically, yeah, that is my main gripe with these figures, is I am frustrated that these were released in the Transformers Shattered Glass line, because there was no reason for them to be released in this line at all. The only reason I can think of why they were released here is because Hasbro and Takara Tomy couldn't figure out any other line to release them both in a 2-pack other than Shattered Glass, which I think is a stupid reason. So yes, my own personal frustrations about these being non-Shattered Glass figures released in Shattered Glass box aside, the bio on the back of the box reads, Slicer is a mad scientist. He's always working to prove that his inventions are useful and important. And the reason why the bio makes no mention of Exo-Suit is I believe I read on the Transformers Wikipedia that Exo-Suit, he lives up to his name by just being an Exo-Suit. He doesn't have sentient intelligence. He's just a drone. He's just a mindless drone that exists to aid Slicer by giving him additional weapons. So it is a I believe a decent callback to the Generation 1 Action Master version of Slicer, but again, it's all up to your own personal interpretation. It's up to you to decide if you want Exo-Suit to be a mindless drone that's just operated by remote control from Slicer, or if you want him to be a sentient robot with his own intelligence and his own personality, then by all means you're free to do so. But I will say this, it's kind of hard to see inside the box, but if I can get it at an angle enough where the light can get inside, you can see right there on the Decepticon faction logo there on Slicer. It's actually a very, it's not the the red Decepticon Shattered Glass logo that other Shattered Glass Decepticons have been given, such as Megatron, Starscream, and Soundwave. Slicer's Decepticon faction logo, and I believe it's the same thing with Exo-Suit. It's actually pink, so depending on which angle you get the light to shine on it, it can look purple, but yeah, it's actually pink. So I think that's the acknowledgement that Hasbro and Takara Tomy acknowledge that technically this is not a Shattered Glass figure by making his Decepticon logo pink rather than making it red or purple. So yeah, it's the same shade of pink seen there in the center of the Shattered Glass logo where the color fades from red to purple right there. It's kind of pink in the center. So yes, but again, if you can get a hold of some stickers or repro labels, you can put a proper purple Decepticon logo over Slicer, and then he'd be a fully fledged Generation 1 Decepticon. So yeah, this figure technically can double as the Shattered Glass version of Wheeljack if you desire, or if you want to change the name of this figure. But if you want to acknowledge this figure as being Slicer, a separate character from Wheeljack, then it's a non-Shattered Glass figure. So basically, if you wanted to have both Slicer and Shattered Glass Wheeljack, you will have Wheeljack in your collection. If you want both those figures in your collection, just like Flame War and Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus / Delta Magnus, you have to buy 2 copies of this figure and treat both figures as separate characters. One last thing I will say about Slicer that he comes with that Wheeljack did not come with is that, and it's pictured here on the back of the box, he does come with 2 additional laser gun weapons, and that's a callback to the second action figure that Slicer was given. Actually not Slicer, I believe it was in fact Shattered Glass Wheeljack. The original Transformers Shattered Glass Wheeljack action figure was a repaint of the Transformers Energon Downshift action figure, and that figure came with 2 laser gun weapons, and so for this new modern, I'm going to just say this is the Legacy / War for Cybertron G1 Slicer. He comes with the same AIM-type laser guns that the Energon Downshift version of Shattered Glass Wheeljack came packaged with that was released at BotCon. So that's another nice callback to Shattered Glass Wheeljack, like having those laser guns, because that figure was a repaint of the Transformers Energon Downshift figure. figure. Whether or not these new laser guns that are included with Slicer means that we'll get a brand new action figure of Energon Downshift someday is uncertain at this point. Right? We could technically get an Energon Downshift figure from this mold. All they'd have to do is modify Earthrise Wheeljack's legs and then change his paint job a bit. Because Energon Downshift is basically supposed to be a Wheeljack act, but he does act without actually being called Wheeljack due to another character having already been given that name. So yes, that's basically all I was to say about that. So with that out of the way, let's get Slicer and Exo-Suit out of the box. And take a close look at them in both of their robot modes. But before I actually do that, but I almost forgot. I'm not really a fan of the Fasttrack mold's weaponizer gimmick, so I am going to announce right now, before we get them out of the box, I am not going to take Exo-Suit and transform him into the armor or the fake Doom buggy that in some of the product photos, which aren't pictured here on the back of the box, that you can do. You can transform Exo-Suit in a way that you can mimic the red Doom buggy that Slicer's G1 Action Master would ride around in. But I'm not going to show off the weaponizer gimmick with the Exo-Suit because I've never really been a fan of the weaponizer gimmick that the Fasttrack mold transforms into. I will transform Exo-Suit into the Tyrant Spear towards the end of the review. But I won't actually show off the weaponizer gimmick right now. And for those of you wondering, because Exo-Suit is just a remote-controlled drone that Slicer operates, and he's not his own sentient intelligence, Exo-Suit is actually inside the box. He's actually down here underneath Slicer's feet, wrapped up along with the additional accessory pieces. So yes, the idea is that Exo-Suit is he's basically a weapons pack that happens to be a transforming Transformers figure. So I find that amusing that Exo-Suit has been treated that way, even though he's a brand new character. He's basically packaged like a weapons pack instead of being actually packaged in robot mode, the way Slicer is. So without further delay, let's get these guys out and take a close look at them both. Alright, so normally I don't show this off on camera, but like I said, here, when you take these out of the box for the first time, this is what the inside looks like with the outer box removed. So yeah, Exo-Suit is stored in weaponizer mode underneath Slicer. So if you decide to buy this figure and you see this enormous paper bag underneath, do not throw it away because Exo-Suit is inside of there. Alright, so here are Slicer and Exo-Suit out of their box, transformed into robot mode, and they're both pretty impressive looking for what they are. Slicer being a repaint of Earthrise Wheeljack, and Exo-Suit being a straight-up repaint, actually, of Black Rorichi. I wish they would have used Fasttrack since Fasttrack has the exhaust pipe ears on his helmet. But I can kind of see why they made this guy why Exo-Suit is a straight-up repaint of Black Rorichi, since he's designed to replace Black Rorichi and being a proper red-colored version of the Tyrant Spear designed for Black Zarak. Alright, but yeah, here they are. Alright, I really enjoy the paint jobs that both these figures have. Exo-Suit is based on the paint job from Slicer's Action Master Doom Buggy, and Slicer's paint job, it is a faithful update of the paint job that his Generation 1 Action Master figure had. It was mostly blue with black and red and gray highlights. And I believe Generation 1 Unslicer, his Action Master figure, I believe it was a distinct inked mold. It might have been a repaint of Wheeljack, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it is appropriate. But he did have a robot mode that was similarly proportioned to Wheeljack, so that's one of the reasons why they made this figure a straight-up repaint of Earthrise Wheeljack. So there's a Slicer next to Wheeljack, and just to have every version of the mold out here. Here he is next to I almost said fellow Decepticon Exhaust, but this version of Exhaust is a mercenary. So see if I can hold all three of them together. So here's all three versions of the mold standing side by side: Wheeljack, Exhaust, and Slicer. Out of the three of them, Exhaust is the one that's the most unique since he has a different head sculpt. But in terms of accessory pieces, Slicer is the most has the most out of all of them. Although I almost forgot to give him the same cannon weapon that Wheeljack and Exhaust come with. So if you want to further distinguish Slicer from Wheeljack, you can put his shoulder cannon on the opposite shoulder that Wheeljack does. As you can also hide away his fins directly behind him if you want, just to further distinguish Slicer from Wheeljack. And then again, he comes with these two brand new laser guns that are based off of the BotCon Shattered Glass Wheeljack figure that I believe was released either in 2006 or 2007. That figure was a repaint of Energon Downshift, who I have the Energon Downshift figure, and it does come with these exact same type of shaped. It comes with the same shaped laser guns that this figure comes with. The Downshift figure, this laser gun is much smaller, and then this one on the Energon Downshift figure, the front half of it actually is a spring-loaded missile. And then on that figure, the way the weapons were stored, and that's the reason why this figure has two 5mm pegs, one right here where the figure can hold it like this, and one right here where it can plug on into the side. And on the Energon Downshift figure, the racing spoiler was one whole piece, and you would attach these on opposite sides of the racing spoiler. It had two 5mm ports on there, and it formed almost like a double-barreled crossbow type weapon. And so when we get Slicer transformed into his vehicle mode, that's going to be the place where these new laser guns get stored in. It is on the sides of his vehicle mode because it's a callback to the Shattered Glass Wheeljack figure. And it is a nice callback. It is a decent one. I do enjoy it. I do enjoy that Slicer, his mouth plate and his ears are gold, whereas it's silver on Wheeljack, and that's really nice there. If you have the Earthrise Wheeljack mold or even the exhaust mold, then the articulation is nothing new on Slicer. His head's on a ball joint, so it can look up and down slightly. It can spin 360 degrees both directions. The shoulder joint has the potential to swerve 360 degrees, but to get it to spin full 360, you do have to rotate the arm around at the outside shoulder joint, which allows the arm to move up and down just to get it around the backpack. The elbows can hinge up and down 90 degrees. There is a bicep swivel, so the lower arms can spin 360 degrees clockwise and counterclockwise. Same thing with the wrist. There's swivel joints on there due to transformation, so the hands can move left and right 360 degrees. 360 degree spin at the waist. Universal joints at the hip, so the leg can go forward that far. It can go backwards this far. The joints are a little stiff, fresh out of the box. The legs can go outward this far, so Slicer can do the full splits just like Wheeljack and Exhaust. Swivel joints in the thigh, but the swivel joint in the waist is a little loose, so you need to hold onto his pelvis to get the thigh swivel to work properly. 90-degree bend at the knees. The feet can technically angle down this far due to transformation at the toes. And then of course you can have the legs bent outward like this, so you can get this figure into a sprawl-legged pose if you desire. And I really enjoy the additional laser guns that are based on the Energon Downshift repaint of Shattered Glass Wheeljack. Heck, I enjoy that Slicer does come packaged with those. Even if Slicer hadn't come with Exo-Suit and he just had these additional accessory pieces, I think that would have been a decent sale there. And then, of course, there's his Decepticon logo. Again, because Slicer is not a Shattered Glass Transformers figure, his Decepticon logo has been painted pink, so it can double as both Shattered Glass. This figure can double as being both Shattered Glass Wheeljack and Generation 1 non-Shattered Glass Decepticon Slicer. I'm going to be using the figure as Slicer because as I'm more interested with Slicer than I am with Shattered Glass Wheeljack. So yes, he's basically somewhat of an enigma how you view Slicer due to the fact that he's a non-Shattered Glass character released in the Shattered Glass line. And I apologize for repeating myself, but I'm just frustrated that Hasbro and Tomy decided to do that, waste a non-Shattered Glass figure in the Shattered Glass line. But I do enjoy that the Decepticon logo is pink, so you can have the figure double as those two characters, Shattered Glass Wheeljack and G1 Slicer. And then moving on to Exo-Suit. Again, I read on the Transformers Wikipedia that Exo-Suit is just a mindless drone. He's remote controlled by Slicer just to act as additional weapons for Slicer to use, and also he's based on Slicer's G1 Doom Buggy vehicle, so it kind of makes sense that he's not a sentient Decepticon and that he's just a drone. But again, it's all personal preference. If you want to treat this guy as a sentient robot, one that has a mind of his own, you can if you desire. I'm going to be doing that because I double checked on the Transformers Wikipedia before I started the review, and Exo-Suit is in fact an entirely brand new Transformers character, so that's something that I didn't think would ever happen in the Transformers Shattered Glass line. I have all sublines of Transformers, but I do enjoy how he came out. And just like Slicer, Exo-Suit's Decepticon logo, it's actually pink ink, so it can double as both a Shattered Glass and a non-Shattered Glass Transformers figure. If you want, you don't even have to buy you could buy a duplicate copy of either Black Rorichi or Fasttrack and swap out the arms if you want Exo-Suit to have a fully purple Decepticon logo. But for size comparison, here's the figure that he straight repainted from, which is Generation Select's Black Rorichi. And again, this figure is designed to transform into a red version of the Tyrant Spear that's designed to be used by Titan class Black Zarak. And here's the original version of the mold, Fasttrack. Fasttrack's the most unique of the three of them because he has these exhaust pipe ears on the back of his helmet, whereas both Exo-Suit and Black Rorichi do not have those. I did, for those of you with a keen eye will notice, I do have Black Rorichi's backpack in a different configuration. I may do the same with Exo-Suit, put the backpack in a different configuration just to make Fasttrack more distinguished from the three of them. And then, of course, you can have the weapons in additional places. Out of the box, Exo-Suit is holding his laser guns in his hands, the way I have it done here on Black Rorichi, and then his dagger weapon. You can either put it on one of the shoulders or have them holding it in the hand, like I have here with Fasttrack. I compromised and did one of each for Exo-Suit just to further distinguish him from both previous versions of the mold. And out of all three of them, as far as which one is my favorite, I've had a Fasttrack for 3 years now, for actually 4 years now. Now I got him when he was first released back in 2019. But I am really impressed with the shade of red and black paint that Exo-Suit has with the magenta and gray and silvery gray highlights on his wheels, and also the silvery gray on his two laser guns. I really like that touch there. And then one thing you can do if you want just to armor up either one of these guys, I believe the dagger weapons, I thought they were the same shade of black, but I believe it's a slightly darker shade of black on Black Rorichi, but you can take the daggers from either one of these figures and give it to one, so one doesn't have any dagger and one has two, if you want to mix and match these guys up. But yeah, there is Exo-Suit with his mold mates, Fasttrack and Black Rorichi. So overall, I do enjoy how both these figures ended up coming out, and I think they're really nice. I think they're really fantastic figures considering they're straight up repaints and they're based off of a Generation 1 Action Master. I'm just really thrilled to have them in my collection. I just wish they would not have been released in the Shattered Glass line. So since I'm repeating myself and this video is dragging on longer than I wanted it to, let's get these guys transformed into their alt modes and wrap up the review. Alright, so here are both Slicer and Exo-Suit transformed into their vehicle modes. Again, because they are straight up repaints of Wheeljack and Black Rorichi, the only distinction between them and previous versions of the molds are their paint jobs, but they are pretty impressive paint jobs nonetheless. I love the red and black racing stripe that runs down the hood and how it continues here. I love how the paint job fades to black here in the back half of the vehicle and it's blue in the front here on Slicer. And even though it's a two-tone color scheme, it does have somewhat of a uniformity to it, so I really enjoy that a whole lot. The ports on the back for the blast effects are unpainted, while the rest is black paint on the back bumper, so that does make it look like he has blue taillights on there. And with Exo-Suit, I really enjoy the silver used on his two laser guns, and just the mostly black and red paint job with silver and magenta highlights. It really really an eye-catching color scheme, and around the time when the Action Masters were released, that was when, in the industry of making action figures and other products at the time, everyone wanted these to have very bright, vibrant colors to them, and that continued into the Generation 2 line in the 90s. So Slicer was one of the Action Masters that had a very bright, vibrant paint job to it, and these new deluxe class figures of both him and Exo-Suit reflect that trend that was going on with the Action Masters during the last days of Generation 1. Now, I said at the start of the review that the laser guns could store on the side of him, and I forgot that this figure doesn't have any 5mm ports. On the Shattered Glass Wheeljack figure, which was a repaint of Energon downshift on that figure, the laser guns, they kind of sat right here on the sides of the vehicle mode, but unfortunately this new figure cannot do that, and so if you want to store Slicer's laser guns on him, the best solution to achieve that is to detach his racing spoiler from the top of him, put it on the back, and have it act as a blast shield, and then have the laser gun stored on the 5mm ports where the spoiler normally stores. So that's the best weapon storage for Slicer's laser guns. It does distinguish him further, again, from both Wheeljack and also Exhaust having his weapons stored like that. But again, it's all personal preference. So here's Slicer along with Wheeljack and Exo-Suit. So there's every version of the mold. Slicer has become the most distinguished since his paint job is mostly blue and black, while Wheeljack and Exhaust have different shades of white with red and green stripes running down them. But if you want Slicer to not have his racing spoiler put on the back bumper, and you want the spoiler to be in the same spot that it is on Exhaust and Wheeljack, you can store the laser guns in these ports here on the back too, but unfortunately the only way to store them is to have them up like this and have it look like he has two giant cannons sticking off the back of him. You could use your imagination and say they're radio antennas for military vehicles sometimes have, but they're so enormous it's a very outrageous way of storing them. If you wanted to find a proper storage for Slicer's laser guns, one thing you can do is you can store them here on the 5mm ports on Exo-Suit's arms, and you can give Exo-Suit some additional cannons, although it does make it look like he has very wide cannons there on the sides of his vehicle mode. So again, it's all your choice on how you want to display these weapons. One thing you can do if you want is have Exo-Suit hold the weapons here and switch out his silver laser guns if you desire. But again, it's all up to you how you want to do it. And while I have Exo-Suit here for a size comparison, here he is with Fasttrack, the original figure version of the mold that Exo-Suit is based on, and here also is Black Rorichi, so here's all three of them lined up together. Fasttrack is the most distinguished from the three of them color-wise due to him being mostly gray, while Black Rorichi's gold and Exo-Suit being mostly red. But I do enjoy having all these guys here in my Transformers collection. Alright, and just to end off the review, here are all six figures in their vehicle modes. And again, I apologize for repeating myself, but I do enjoy having Slicer and Exo-Suit in my Transformers collection. I enjoy how they look standing next to Wheeljack, Exhaust, Fasttrack, and Black Rorichi, and I just overall enjoy seeing every version of this mold lined up together. I honestly wish they would have designed these new laser guns to have some type of weapon storage other than the ones I showed off a moment ago. But I still enjoy that callback to the Shattered Glass Wheeljack figure that was released back in the late 2000s. So to end the review for the proverbial question, do I recommend you get Transformers Shattered Glass Slicer and Exo-Suit and add them to your collection? I absolutely do. Even if you have all the other versions of the mold, if you have Wheeljack, Exhaust, Fasttrack, and Black Rorichi, You cannot go wrong also having Slicer and Exo-Suit in your Transformers collection. Even though at the start of the review I said I'm not a fan of the weaponizer gimmick with the Fasttrack mold. The Fasttrack mold itself is one of my favorite molds to come out of the Siege line. I enjoy the robot mode and the vehicle mode of a Cybertron in a 6-wheeled battle tank. And I enjoy how I've always enjoyed the Earthrise Wheeljack mold, and Slicer, just like Exhaust, he's a fantastic use of the Wheeljack mold. There's no mold degradation as far as I could tell on both Exo-Suit and Hood and Slicer, although I do think there is some slight mold degradation with the right side foot transforming into the front section of the car. Doesn't want to line up properly, unlike it does with Wheeljack in it and Exhaust. But overall, I have nothing negative to say about both these figures. I appreciate that they were sold in a 2-pack. I love the introduction of Exo-Suit being based off of Slicer's Generation 1 Action Master, the red Doom Buggy vehicle that he came with. And with, again, the only minor gripe I have with Exhaust and Exo-Suit is they weren't released in the proper line, because they are not Shattered Glass action figures. They're Generation 1 action figures that happen to be released in Shattered Glass, so that's the only gripe I have with them. Thank you guys all so much for watching. This has been the TFN Geek, and this has been my review of Transformers, Shattered Glass, Slicer, and Exo-Suit. I highly recommend you get this 2-pack of deluxe class figures and add them to your Transformers collection. And until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.